right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to an early show of the Fourth and Long podcast, episode 12. Jake, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you, Justin?
I'm pretty good. And I don't have to work like you today, so that's awesome. Man, did you see the NBA? There's so many trades going around. I don't care.
Oh yeah.
I don't care.
I,
Don't care.
okay.
I
I
don't.
really don't.
I
I'm
can't.
sorry, but you don't care.
I could care less.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff to get into today, mostly not revolving around last week's games, because last week the schedule was pretty much a dud. But we'll get into that a little bit, and then we'll get into some other segments. But first, today in sports history, today in 1940, the Green Bay Packers became the first NFL team to travel by plane. That's very interesting because you'll hear my third thing today in sports history kind of revolves around that. Also today in 1956, Jim Brown, the Syracuse fullback, set the NCAA record for points scored with 43 versus Colgate. I believe he was their kicker as well, so that makes kind of sense. We missed this one on Friday, but going back to the plane, on November 14th, 1970, a charter jet carrying most of the Marshall University football team clipped a stand of trees and crashed into a hillside just 2 miles from the Tri-State Airport in Canova, West Virginia, where they were supposed to land, and it was killed everyone on board. So I don't know how I missed that one on Friday. I didn't look hard enough. That's my bad, but yeah, that was a terrible thing that happened, and that's why I always get like sketched out when I see teams are like flying everywhere. Just take a bus, man. But I mean, yeah, too bad for that. And We Are Marshall's okay movie, not that great, but he's got Matthew McConaughey, so that's about it. You got anything to say about that, Jake, or you want to get into the news and notes?
No, why don't we get into the news and the notes?
All right. So basically, this has become our COVID updates, even though we do have some other things. We will tell you some cancellations and postponements that have basically already happened. Ole Miss versus Texas A&M has already been postponed. That's pretty big because Texas A&M, they were in the five, like we're in the first two out for a lot of people in the playoffs, and because they had kind of had an easy road, they had lost to Alabama earlier, but they wouldn't play in the SEC championship, so they wouldn't pick up another loss. But if they're going to be shut down for 2 or 3 weeks like Florida was, they can probably kiss that dream goodbye. Georgia Tech versus Miami, Florida has also been postponed. I saw on ESPN they're shuffling around the ACC schedule because of the Hurricanes virus issues, so we should see more schedule changes for them. And I don't know if you saw, but last Sunday, Cal played. Who did they play? They played somebody on a Sunday just like to get it in and to not have to reschedule. So they played on a Sunday, and which is really weird, which I also think we could end up seeing more of. You won't get your wide TV audience that you would regularly get, and it's not like you're going to bring any fans anyway. So really, if that's a way that teams can get games in, then that's what they need to do. Charlotte and Marshall has been postponed. We'll get more into this with Coach on the hot seat, but South Carolina finally parted ways with Will Muschamp. He's been putrid since he's been there. He took over for Spurrier, I believe, in 2013 or 14, and he went 28-30 while he was there. And some possible replacements for him, I have heard. I will talk about more of that, but I've heard some not big names, but names that probably deserve raises, including your boys from Coastal Carolina. So that's news there. And then also speaking of South Carolina, their star cornerback who led the team in interceptions and passes deflected, J.C. Horn, who's the son of NFL wide receiver, former NFL wide receiver Joe Horn, has decided that he's just opting out the rest of the season. He's going to wait until the NFL draft, which I don't really hate. I have a feeling we could see more of that, like with teams that are not really going anywhere. People just be like, there's no reason for me to get on that field and hurt myself. You know what I mean?
No, I completely understand. And we kind of talked about it a couple weeks ago when everything started hitting the fan, is these star athletes that have a chance to go in the draft are going to just start sitting out because them playing a game, they might get filmed, but they also can get hurt, and that can jeopardize their future. So I think you're right. I think we're going to see a lot more players doing this. And you brought up a good point with bowl season right around the corner. I can't see a lot of star athletes wanting to play in bowl games this year either, because they're probably not going to happen. They might be canceled like a day beforehand, a day afterwards, and they're just going to opt out of it.
I have the roller coaster ride of my emotions this season in college football has been insane. Like, I was so happy and so ready when Ohio State and the Big Ten came back, and now I have myself thinking that I don't really know if there's going to be a playoff. I think they're obviously going to try and push for it. And I don't know if they're going to have any other bowls. I mean, like, what's the point of playing in a bowl unless you're like a MAC team or a smaller? I mean, that's big for those guys. But I mean, if Michigan gets invited to a bowl, like, they don't want to play. I mean,
no, yeah,
you saw that last year when Alabama played Michigan, and Michigan didn't want to be at the bowl because it wasn't a top 4 game, and Alabama smoked them. Granted, Alabama it was better than Michigan, but we'll put that.
Still, there was no effort.
Yeah, it was just like they were there just because they had to be there. But yeah, I have a feeling, like I said, my roller coaster of emotions. I mean, I just feel like at this point, I don't know if we're gonna see like a postseason. And I also have been like trying to put together a college basketball podcast, and like, I don't see how they're gonna play college basketball this year, especially.
I don't either. I really don't, because with how many teams there are and all the games they need to schedule, all the traveling that has to be done, we kind of talked about it earlier in the season. We touched upon it. I feel like the only way that a college basketball season gets on their way is if they have like a bubble scenario where they have a team where they have, they go down to Florida, they go down, either Florida or one team comes to a bunch of teams go one side of the country and then just sit in a hotel and play games and do classes. I just don't see any other way to get around it.
Yeah, and like I said, with I'm even, like I said, I'm even now just wondering, because there's going to be so much time off between not so much time, but teams are going to have like 2 or 3 weeks off. Teams that make the playoff after the conference championships to get ready for the playoffs. I mean, that's Christmas time. I mean, that's holiday season. You can't really control what your players do and if they want to go home and for Christmas, things like that. I mean, I would like to say that coaches should be strict, but I mean, you can't go around telling kids that they can't go home for Christmas or for New Year's or something.
No.
So it's just going to be something that we have to watch going forward. But I mean, other than that, do you have anything else really? That's all I got. That's all I got for right now.
Not really. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how many other coaching positions start opening up. I mean, South Carolina was the first. I think it was a good decision, but now it's just a wait and see game. Because as you said, the head coach for Coastal Carolina is one of the strong contenders for the South Carolina position, and then it creates a domino effect. Who are they just going to promote in-house, or are they going to try to go out and get someone else? And I feel like that's going to be the must-watch for the offseason, because there's a ton of teams historically bad. I mean, we've talked about it. Michigan's historically bad this year. Ole Miss has been up and down this year, but their offense is still pretty legit.
They put up 720 yards on South Carolina this weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe Will Muschamp should have been fired after last season. I don't know why they kept him.
I don't either, but I think that's going to be what to watch this offseason is, teams looking for a new head coach and trying to get better, because this year has just been historically bad for teams.
Yeah, it's one of the weird things that always surprises me, and I don't know why it does anymore, but like when these coaches get fired, like at these schools, you have to pay a buyout clause because it's in their contract, and they're saying Will Muschamp's was around $15 million. So that means the school probably paid, I don't know, probably close to $10 million of it, but like donors and board members had to like get money for around $15 million. I know that's chump change for all of those big schools, but still, it's just, I can't even imagine what Michigan, like Harbaugh's buyout at Michigan is. But we'll get into that later. But right now, we're going to do the updated AP poll. Um, a couple changes, really, not too many. Top four still the same: Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson. Um, Texas A&M is still fifth. Sixth is, I think, sixth is Florida. I think Florida and Texas A&M should be switched. Seven is Cincinnati. Eight is BYU. Nine Indiana. 10 Wisconsin, which kind of shows me that the voters or the media doesn't really like push and put bad things on teams because they couldn't play, I guess.
Yeah.
And 11 Oregon, they've been there since last week. 12 Florida, Miami, Florida. They barely got by Virginia Tech this weekend. 13 Georgia, 14 Oklahoma State, 15 Marshall, 16 the Chanticleers from Coastal Carolina, 17 Iowa State and Brees Hall, 18 Oklahoma, 19 Northwestern, 20 USC, 21 Liberty. That's another coach that's going to get huge looks. And Hugh Freeze already coached at Division high level Division One for Ole Miss, but he kind of got in some trouble. But he could be on a lot of teams' short lists. So 21 Liberty, 22 Texas, 23 Auburn, 24 Louisiana, and 25 Tulsa. Tulsa is just they for whatever reason they've always been like the dark horse that just beats on the team that you think is good. Like SMU, we thought was good, and they beat SMU. So
Yeah.
Unless you got something to say about that, we're gonna head into our
No.
1 minute debate. Today on our 1 minute debate, it's going to be who deserves a playoff spot more, Cincinnati or BYU. I'll call it in the air. You call it.
Heads.
It's heads. Okay, it landed heads. Go ahead. You want to go first or second?
I'm gonna go first, and I'm gonna go with my boy Zach Wilson at BYU. I mean, this team has just shown out this year. Their defense has been questionable, but their offense has shown to be legit. I mean, being able to hold with some big teams this year, it's just I can't say enough about Zach Wilson. I've been on it since about week 2. He showed me something that not a lot of quarterbacks in the country have, and that's an arm and accuracy to be able to throw the ball deep. And that defense, even though questionable at some points, can come up with big stops down the stretch in a game. So with that, I will let you argue for Cincinnati.
Well, first of all, let's also say the reason you love Zach Wilson so much is because he responded to your tweet or your message to him. That's why you like him so much. But I think personally, there's no way they both get in. I think neither of them gets in really. But
No.
I would say Cincinnati just because they have a tougher schedule. When Army was ranked at the beginning of the year, they beat Army. Their closest game, I believe, was Army, and they have a big test this weekend down at the Bounce House and at UCF. But I mean, they're well coached. Desmond Ritter is a true dual threat quarterback, and kind of like BYU. I mean, they haven't played the best teams, but in the same also with BYU is that I mean they've beaten the teams they are supposed to have beaten, and they've beaten them badly. So I mean, no one's on par with them in that AAC really. But so I'm going to say Cincinnati. But like I said, I would happily knock out Clemson for even one of them to be in.
Yeah, I mean their closest game this year was against UTSA, who hasn't had a terrible season, but it's kind of been their regular. But I mean, their most impressive win was going into BYU, where they were 1-5 and just absolutely dominating. I mean, winning 51-17
Boise
on the Blues. What?
You said going into BYU?
Oh, going in the Boise State. Boise State.
Yeah, I got you. I figured it. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I really wish both of them could get in because at least it would have made this season not a complete dud and been like, okay, there's some Cinderella teams
Yeah.
But with that, we'll move on to last week's scores. We didn't even do a preview blog or a preview article because there was really no reason. We didn't want to cover many of the games. I don't think I watched many of the games on Saturday. And so I'm gonna go over the scores, and if you want to pop in and say something, go ahead. Okay, so number 2 Notre Dame was at Boston College. They won 45-31. We could talk about that one real quick. Ian Book was very good. He threw for over 300 yards in the air, and he also he rushed, I think, for 80 yards as well. So he's kind of stepping up when they need him. I really thought Boston College was going to be able to play with them, and kind of like I think you said last week, Boston College was able to play with them for about a half, and then after that,
Yeah.
it just went downhill for them. You got anything to add on that one?
No, I was very surprised that Notre Dame really struggled in the first half defensively. But they've kind of shown that if it's not that big of a game, they kind of underestimate their opponents. So I think if they do make it into the playoff, that's going to be their downfall. They're going to underestimate if they're a number 2 seed. They'll probably underestimate the 3 seed, even if it is Clemson or even Ohio State at this point.
Yeah,
But I just don't think they have enough defensive talent all around to compete with a high octane offense, especially when it's firing on all cylinders. I mean, the only way they beat Ohio State, if that's the case, if we ended the football season today, I mean, we'll talk about it later. It's Bama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson, and with Justin Fields at the helm at Ohio State, it's just going to dominate that defense. I mean, the only reason they beat Clemson, and they barely beat Clemson with a freshman quarterback, it's impressive they beat Clemson, but at the same time, they didn't have Trevor Lawrence. And with Trevor Lawrence, that team is completely different. So
and
I just don't.
DJ Ugalele played well, but he's not Trevor Lawrence. That's
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And they barely beat them.
Yeah.
I just don't think if they do make it into the playoffs as it sits now, then they're just going to get demolished like they have the past couple years when they're in.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say that I think last year was kind of Oklahoma's last straw. People were sick of seeing them getting in the playoffs, and they get killed. Luckily, they're not anywhere near that this year. But I would proceed cautiously, Irish fans, because if they do make it to the playoffs and get their doors blown off, people are they're gonna get the Oklahoma treatment that they shouldn't be playing in big games. And we both have the same playoff picture, but we'll go over it. But I mean, they would end up being the 2 seed over a number 3 seed Ohio State. I believe that's the Rose Bowl. I don't know. I can look it up when I get a chance. But
if we have a playoff too.
Yeah, maybe I've swayed you since last night. You were like, I was down in the dumps last night. I was like, man, I just don't see how they're gonna do it, and I still really don't. But we'll see going forward. On to the next game. Your boys, Arkansas played at Florida. Florida won 63-35. I think I had the over in that one. I think that was my one win. Yeah. I had the over in that one. But
I hit the over in like the first half.
Oh yeah, it wasn't even close. But yeah, I mean,
Florida's legit this year. We'll talk about it once we get to our later segment, helmet stickers. But Kyle Trask was damn near perfect, even without Kyle Pitts, his number 1 target. I mean, that team is just built offensively and defensively. They can hold out pretty well against those higher teams. I mean, they beat SMU earlier this year, and it's just I feel like they deserve another. They're one of the. We have so many good teams at the top this year that could make it in. I mean, Florida being one of them, Cincinnati, BYU. It's just, I don't know. It's just going to come down to what the committee thinks, and I think what makes them the most amount of money in this year that kind of has stripped them of some of their revenue, but. Florida, I feel, is like legit and needs to be taken seriously.
And I think it stinks for Florida because I agree. I think they're pretty legit. I think their defense is still sketchy, but I haven't seen anyone in the country that his defense isn't sketchy yet so far. So, but yeah, I think it sucks for Florida because they're in the East. I would say that Texas A&M, if there were 2 SEC teams to get into the playoff, Texas A&M would have a much better chance to get in than Florida, just because Florida's got to go to Atlanta to play Alabama in the SEC championship. But yeah, I mean, it's just the way the SEC is. But no, I think Kyle Trask was really good, even though I kind of messing with you last night about it. But yeah, they're good. It's just I've come to the point where I just have no idea what's going to happen, or
you don't.
Yeah, with anything. Like, who knows? Tomorrow, Florida could break out in another virus outbreak. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just who knows. But I do think Florida's legit, and I'll give credit to Arkansas too. I mean, putting up 35 points against Florida's defense, which is still shaky, like I said. But Arkansas, when they hired Sam Pittman, I was like, they hired the fat offensive line coach from Georgia. Are you kidding me? And he's coming. He's done a pretty good job. So I give them credit. They're in a much better. Arkansas is in a much better position than a lot of SEC teams. Like I would say, they're in a better position than Kentucky, by Tennessee, obviously Vanderbilt, South Carolina for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But I mean, as it comes to the bottom feeders in the SEC, Arkansas is the top of the bottom feeders. So, but we'll hit up the next game. I didn't really watch much of this, and when I say the rankings for these games, this was last week's AP poll. Their ranking, but number 9, Miami played at Virginia Tech, and they won 25-24. They pretty much just squeaked by. Virginia Tech's been a disappointment this year for the most part. Ever since they lost Frank Beamer, they really kind of been like that. De'Aaron King was kind of erratic, but he got the job done at the end. He really is more of a true dual threat guy than I really thought, but he was 24 of 38, and he threw a touchdown. I think he had one on the ground as well. But yeah, I'm happy we're past the days that Miami was like a top 5 team and people were talking about them making the playoffs and stuff. You remember when Miami played Clemson? We were all like, "Oh, it's a huge game." No,
Yeah.
that is
But
not
the
at
time
all.
it was at the time. I mean, Clemson was, I believe, 1, and then Miami was ranked 5.
5 or 6. Yeah, but yeah. That was also a time when I had hope and dreams and a bright outlook. Now I'm just like it's snowing here, like pretty hard, and it's depressing. Everything's depressing. But yeah. Then the next one, I'll talk a little bit about this one. Indiana traveled to Michigan State, blanked them 24-0. I don't know if Indiana is for real, because I don't think anyone in the Big Ten outside of Wisconsin and Ohio State are for real. But I mean, they blanked Michigan State. Michigan State. I mean, we'll talk about it, but Michigan State beat Michigan in Michigan. To me, it seems like the Big Ten this year is kind of reminds me of the Big 12. They're just cannibalizing each other.
Yeah, they really are.
And so, but I mean, Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback for Indiana, he's had a pretty good year. He has have you watched any of Indiana at all?
No, not
Dude,
really.
he's a southpaw. He's a lefty, and he has like the worst throwing motion I've ever seen in my life. It looks like me throwing a football left-handed. I don't know how he completes passes, but yeah, I mean, their defense is pretty legit too. Yeah. Michael Penix was 25 of 38, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. They rely heavily a lot on Stevie Scott III in the backfield. He's kind of been putting up Chuba Hubbard numbers where he's carrying the ball a lot, but not necessarily getting yards. But a lot of times I think we miss the fact that if you're carrying the ball a lot, you're controlling time of possession, but against Big Ten teams, it really doesn't matter. But
Yeah, no.
Do you have anything to say about that one?
Not really. I mean, Indiana's been a really impressive team this year. They could also make a push for, a top. I think they'll finish in the top 10, but their schedule, if you look at it, is not really that difficult going forward. But continue to see them maybe improve and maybe start blowing teams out more. I mean, like this 24-0, maybe you start seeing higher scoring games.
Yeah, well, that shouldn't happen this weekend when they travel to Ohio State. So
no, yeah, hopefully, but hey,
yeah.
You never know. You never know.
I wouldn't be too mad if they, except I can't see an Indiana team losing. If there's snow football, my mood will completely change, and I'll be so happy. I love snow football. On to the next one out west in the Pac-12. Your boys, the Oregon Ducks, played at Washington State, and they won 43-29. What do you got on that one, bud?
Tyler Show was really impressive. He went 21 of 30 for 312 yards, 4 touchdowns, and threw 1 pick. But what really impressed me the most is that was the stat line for the quarterback. The stat line for the running backs was even more impressive. They had three different rushers go over 50 yards. Most of it coming from CJ Verdell. He had
Hmm.
18 carries, 118 yards, and a tutty. But Tyler Show himself, the quarterback, had 9 rushes for 81 yards. And then Travis Dye, their kind of dual threat at the running back position, with 5 carries for 54 yards. I just think this is a really well-rounded team, with Tyler Show at the helm. He doesn't scream super accurate, but he makes the throws he should. He's able to find an open receiver. He's able to throw into open space, which is a lot hard. Is everyone doesn't realize is really hard for a quarterback to do, throwing into those tight windows and throwing to a barely open wide receiver that the ball has to be completely
Yeah,
accurate to.
or throwing him open.
Yeah, exactly. So I just feel like this team is legit this year. I mean, their defense late in games kind of can struggle, but I feel like it's still just a little bit of rusted. I mean, this was only their second game, so I feel like that's just going to continue to get better with more experience and more game time. But I feel like this is a legit team this year and should be in conversation, but I know won't be because of starting late and not being able to play as many games as other teams in the country.
I think you might be surprised. I think Oregon will be in the conversation because if they win out and win the Pac-12 championship, they'll have played 7 games. And if Ohio State wins on wins the Big Ten championship, they've only played 8 games. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
that big of a difference. But like I said, I mean the cancellation for Ohio State hurt last weekend. But yeah, I think like I said, if I was a high school recruit football player, obviously I'd look at Ohio State 'cause I'm from Ohio. But like Oregon would be so hard not to go to just because of all the free stuff you get.
Yeah. Well,
Literally just
we already have our first verbal commit from 2031 candidate, the internet sensation.
are you serious? You
No,
committed
yeah, he verbally committed to Oregon, supposedly.
2031.
Yeah, he's in like
That's 20 years after I graduated high school.
dude, it's crazy. I mean, for those who don't know, there's a verbal sensation. He goes by Baby Gronk. Verbally committed the other day. I believe it was Sunday he verbally committed, or it might have been yesterday that he verbally committed to Oregon. So it's
Oh,
just,
that's
I don't believe it. I don't think it's real. I mean, you hear these little kids who, grow up, oh, they're going to be this, they're going to be that. And then by the time they hit high school or something, you don't really hear anything from them. They don't end up going to a big school. It's just like they're just big for their size while they're kids. And then they go to a high school that kids are going to be the same size as them. And it's just and same talent level. And it's no competition.
I know. Speaking of Oregon early commitments, I believe DeAnthony Thomas. You remember him? They're like a fast guy.
Yeah.
He was like in 7th or 8th grade when he committed to Oregon, and he ended up going to Oregon. But the only reason like it was so publicized is because he played for Snoop Dogg's like Pee Wee football team.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah,
mean, again, it's just crazy that we're getting kids. We'll kind of talk about it more in the off season, but it's just crazy. Some of these super young kids that are not even in their teens, not even in high school, are getting offers and doing this type of stuff and verbally committing to a school that's like we don't even know what the future is going to be for these
yeah.
schools.
Like when I was 7th grade, I was worried about like girls I liked and like going to the movies and like passing math class. Like not like, hey guys, I'm gonna go to Oregon.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll move on. I don't. This next one. We've beat this to a drum. I mean, Wisconsin went to Michigan and
Dominated.
dominated. It won 49-11. I mean, I'm just
Michigan's just bad. Well, I'm just gonna leave it at this. Michigan's bad. Wisconsin, even though they didn't play football for 2 weeks and canceled 2 games, just are still really good.
yeah.
But
Graham Mertz is really good. I like him a lot. I mean, we'll obviously talk about Michigan more once we get the coach on the hot seat. But
yeah.
I mean, I watched the beginning of that game. I don't think you did, but Joe Milton on his first 2 passes threw 2 picks, and I'm not kidding. They were literally thrown 2 defenders.
No, I saw the replay of them. They're bad. They are
there was no
really
one
bad.
in sight. I
I
don't know
know.
where he was throwing. And
I,
then they ended up putting their backup in for a little bit. I mean, at that play, Michigan is a dumpster fire right now, if there ever was one.
yeah,
Um,
they are. They really are. I'm
uh,
surprised we didn't get news that Jim Harbaugh was out after that. I mean, Will Muschamp's has been a lot better. I mean, his last couple seasons at Oregon, at South Carolina, haven't been great, but I mean, they've been better than what Jim Harbaugh's been to a point.
Technically not, but yeah, no. I mean, I get what you're saying. We'll get into it when we talk about coach on the hot seat because I have a whole thing about Michigan. I'm not really gonna say anything about the next one. Other than I lost. What this was one of my picks. Number 19 SMU traveled to Tulsa, lost 28-24. Missed out by 1.5 points. Tulsa just seems to be the place where like everyone goes to get beat. Like every small teams, they go there and get beat. I don't know why. I believe Tulsa's in Oklahoma. I drove through there once. It's like the weirdest place on earth.
Yeah, it is.
The next one, number 20 USC beat Arizona at Arizona 34-30. USC needed another pretty like a big comeback at the end in the fourth quarter to win the game. I mean, good for them that they're doing it, but I guess now because they've been throwing so much with Keaton Slovis, they think his shoulder is injured from like throwing the ball so much, and he's supposed to go seeing a doctor this week and things like that. But I mean, it shouldn't take you a fourth quarter comeback to beat Arizona. And I mean, I know Kevin Sumlin's there, but I mean, it shouldn't take. Arizona's not a good football program. They just aren't.
No, they really aren't. I mean, if you just want to kind of move on, I mean, we can go through the scores, but the rest of these games were not really competitive. They were kind of blowouts. We had number 23 Northwestern beating Purdue 27-20. South Alabama, again, kind of another dumpster fire situation there, losing 38-10 against Louisiana. And then our last one that we had was Middle Tennessee losing to Marshall 42-14. One game that I do want to kind of mention because it will be brought up later. UNC in North Carolina beating Wake Forest in a shootout, 59-53. I mean, I'll talk about it later because three of the players from UNC were part of my helmet stickers, but there was just no defense in this game. But it was very entertaining to watch. It was kind of like watching that Monday Night Football game all those years ago. I think it was either last year. I think it was last year or 2 years. It was 2 years ago. The Monday Night Football matchup between Kansas City and the Los Angeles Rams. It's the highest scoring Monday Night Football game ever. It was like 59-54. But this was exactly how it was played. There was no defense involved. It was just all offense going into the entire game.
Yeah, Sam Howell finally showed up. I would like to go back to the Northwestern Purdue game real quick.
Sure.
That was a huge game for standings wise in the Big Ten because they're both in the Big Ten West. And they were both 2-0, and like I said, I don't really know how they're going to judge Wisconsin's record. But if they don't play at least 6 games, they're not eligible for the Big Ten championship. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, right now Northwestern, after beating Purdue, is on pace to be the Big Ten West champion and play probably either Ohio State or Indiana. So that was it was an ugly, ugly, disgusting game, but they got it done. So we'll go on to our picks from the weekend. Let me pull up my big board. You went 1-1. I think you lost Notre Dame, BC plus 13.5.
Yeah, I barely lost that one. I lost it by half a point.
You got Florida minus 17.5.
And then my Coastal Carolina didn't play, so it got postponed.
They didn't play?
No, I believe Coastal Carolina got postponed.
Oh, well, I had you as a push anyways, so it
Oh.
would have been 1-1 anyways. My picks were SMU plus 2.5. Obviously, didn't cover that one. Florida Arkansas over 60.5. That happened by the time the ball was kicked off, and I was very wrong. Notre Dame Boston College under 50. That was bad. So I went 1-2 on the year. We are both still 8-2 on our locks. I'm 9-4 on my picks. You're 8-4. And in trivia, I'm 5-6. You're 7-4. So we're pretty even, except for trivia. And then obviously we'll fill out. Friday should be more of a normal show, unlike last week, and we'll
Mhm.
actually do our picks and locks and everything like that. So,
Yep.
but heading into that, after that, let's get into our top tens. I'll go ahead and go first. I don't know how I mess this up every time, but I do. All right. I got one Alabama, Notre Dame, two Ohio State, three Florida, four Clemson, five Texas A&M, six Cincinnati, seven, eight Indiana, nine BYU, and 10 Wisconsin.
Mhm. All right, my top 10 is kind of similar. We kind of talked about this last night when I sent it to you. I have Alabama at number one, number two, Notre Dame, number three, Ohio State, number four, Clemson. I mean, just as it stands today, if the college football world ended today, that would be the top four no matter what. I kind of switched it up, though, for my 5 through 10. I got Florida at number five, number six, BYU, number seven, Cincinnati, number eight, Indiana, number nine, Oregon, and number 10, Texas A&M. Again, I feel that more teams should be penalized for not playing games. That's why I have Texas A&M dropping with the news that they've shut everything down last week. Um, I think as of right now, Oregon is a little bit better. I mean, Indiana is a better team than Oregon. By the end of the season, I don't think that will be the case, but I still feel like Florida and BYU should have a better opportunity to be in the top four than Cincinnati at the moment. But that's a longer debate for another time.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. So with that, then we'll get into our playoff picture, where it's the same for both of us. I don't know how it's the same for me, but it is. But I still think, even though I have Florida ranked fourth, I think Clemson will get it over them. So both of our playoff pictures is Alabama. The one seed Alabama will play the number four seed Clemson. Number two seed Notre Dame will play the three seed Ohio State. That 1-4 matchup would be a pretty darn good matchup, and I don't know. I think Ohio State would handle Notre Dame pretty easily, but I mean, the real question that we've kind of talked about and kind of got into a little bit is I will we even have a playoff? It's just too hard to predict right now.
It really is because we don't know what if things are going to get worse. I mean, there's already three states that are already reclosed
Yeah,
due to COVID reasons. So
yeah. I mean, my mom, she's a principal at a preschool, and she had to clear out two classrooms yesterday because of COVID. So I mean, I mean, especially up north by me, like getting snow and stuff. It's just gonna get worse, and that sucks to say. We wish the best for everyone that is affected by it, but just this scenario in my mind of college kids having like 12, not even college kids, 18, 19, and 20-year-olds having like 12 to 14 days off from their college, they're from their bowl, or not their bowl, their conference championship to their playoff. I just I don't know how they're gonna stop people from contracting it, because they're going to be around a lot of different people. And I mean, if they really do tell the players they have to stay on campus, and that's fine with them, then great, do that. But I just have a hard time believing that a college coach, maybe other than Nick Saban because he has no feelings, but or Dabo, because Dabo worships the devil. And so I, yeah,
uh,
it's just it's a conversation for maybe next Tuesday or farther down the road, really. But I mean, we'll see how this weekend goes. But I mean, we already have postponements, like we said, this weekend. So,
yeah.
um, yeah. But with that, we're going to get into our Heismanology. I'll let you go first. I think we have pretty similar ones, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah. My first, I mean, after last week, and again, we'll talk about it after this with our helmet sticker segment. Kyle Trask is just turning into a really good quarterback. I think he showed that he isn't just a one trick pony. I mean, he played without Kyle Pitts and absolutely dominated. Justin Fields is still number 2. Trevor Lawrence I have dropping to number 3 due to the fact that he didn't play the last 2 weeks. And I think he'll come back and he'll show a little bit of rust. I mean, last year he came back after injury and was a little bit shaky, but I still think he'll be up there and he'll probably will retake number 1 after playing. But my number 4 I have Zach Wilson, and then number 5 I have a kind of between Mac Jones and Najee Harris. I think right now
any other Alabama player.
No, I don't. I wouldn't say that, but I just have it this way because of the fact that these two players kind of play off each other. You know, Mac Jones has been really accurate this year, but Najee Harris has been able to still be a very good run threat. So teams have to play the run more, and it opens up lanes for Mac Jones. And the same thing for Najee Harris. Mac Jones opens up the field, and then Najee Harris has a ton of room to run. But again, behind that solid offensive line, you can kind of really do anything. But I'll let you go into yours.
Yeah, I would put Najee Harris. He's having a great year, but I think with everything going on this year, the Heisman's going to make it as simple as possible and make it a quarterback award. I think quarterback will win no matter what, but I think it'll be all quarterbacks that go to New York virtually and accept the Heisman virtually. But for my Heismanology, I have number 1 is still Justin Fields. And I don't even know if he'll win the Heisman, but he just looks like the best pro prospect to me right now. If Trevor Lawrence puts on some weight, but Justin Fields, his fluidity is just, I mean, it looks effortless to play quarterback for him. And in the second, I have Mac Jones just because he's put up crazy numbers, crazy good accuracy. I mean, he's playing for an all-star team in the SEC, so, I mean, it's pretty easy to play quarterback for. But, I mean, the voters love that kind of stuff. So, number 3, Trevor Lawrence, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. If Trevor Lawrence leaves Clemson without even going to without ever being a finalist for the Heisman Trophy, that would be one of the biggest upsets.
Oh, absolutely.
Ever.
Absolutely.
Because I could easily see them putting Kyle Trask, who I have 4th, or Zach Wilson over Lawrence because he just hasn't been as impressive this year.
Yeah.
So we're going to get to our next segment, which is obviously our helmet stickers. We'll go, snake draft 1-1 and let you start out because you're real excited about this guy. So.
Yeah, I mean, my number 1 helmet sticker has to go to Kyle Trask this week, quarterback for Florida. Was 23 of 29 for 356 yards and 6 touchdowns. And mind you, that was all without Kyle Pitts, his number 1 target. I mean, this kid was just finding stuff. I think maybe he might have the same hype as Tim Tebow did coming out of college a little bit. Can run the ball when he has to, but really a pocket quarterback. But I think he has more poise and more control than Mr. Tim Tebow had. But we'll just have to see. I mean, I would love to see this kid playing on Sundays come next football season.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he sneaks into the first round of the draft and he goes to the Saints or someone will have a late pick and he'll sit for a year behind Breeze or you know what I mean, kind of like that.
Well, I mean, I don't know about the Saints. I mean, they are paying $15 million to a hybrid player in Taysom Hill.
The only reason they paid him the only reason they paid him that money is because what's his face, whatever the coach's name is, didn't want him to team anywhere else.
But that's just crazy. You're paying $15 million to basically a glorified backup
who comes in 10 times a game and either runs a fake route or runs the ball. But I don't get it either. Believe me, I just don't. My first helmet sticker goes to, I think this is his second appearance on my list, Desmond Ritter, the quarterback, Cincinnati. He was 24 of 31 for 327 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also carried the ball 8 times for 75 yards and 1 touchdown. This guy will make it in the NFL. I don't know if he'll make it. He'll get drafted probably to be a receiver or tight end mix. I don't know if he's got the skill set to be a quarterback in the NFL, but he's just been killing it this year, and it's good to see that Luke Fickell and Cincinnati are doing well, and that they're not the only team in Ohio. That Ohio State's not the only team in Ohio that is legit this year. So
Yeah.
I'll go back to.
I think you could. I think one thing that you forgot to mention is Desmond Ritter has had a very similar career in college football to that of the highest paid quarterback in the NFL ever, in Patrick Mahomes. Kind of not really talked about coming out of college. Was a Heisman hopeful at one point, but then kind of fell off the map. And now look what he's doing in the NFL. So I think we could definitely see Desmond Ritter be that in the NFL,
I
possibly.
don't know
And
if
I
he's
know.
got the arm strength.
Hey, you never know, right?
Yeah, I
But
mean, sure, if Desmond Ritter becomes Patrick Mahomes, crown me the idiot who said he wasn't, because I'll die on that hill. Whatever.
No worries. But my second helmet sticker goes to the quarterback out of North Carolina, Mr. Sam Howell.
Finally decided to play football this year.
Yeah, I mean, just one of probably his best college career game ever. Went 32 of 45, not the most accurate, but for 550 yards and 7 touchdowns. And if you don't mind, I'll kind of go into my last two. My last two are the two wide receivers, Daz Newsome and Diami Brown. Newsome caught 10 balls for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Brown caught 8 passes for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns. I believe this is the only duo this year. There's been one other duo, and I forget who it was, but this has been the only other wide receiver duo to have both have the same in the same game, 2 touchdowns and over 150 yards receiving. I remember us covering it early a couple weeks ago. I just forget who the
did Bama with Devonta Smith and
it might have been Jalen Waddle, but
Waddle. Yeah, I don't know. That's the only one
I forget what it was, but they're only the second duo this year to do that. And out of all the talented wide receivers we've been kind of talking about, it's just crazy to see that. But I'll let you get into your last two.
Yeah, I mean, wide receivers have made a huge jump, I think. They've been, I mean, I talk about Garrett Wilson and Clarissa Olave from Ohio State almost every weekend. But yeah, for my second helmet sticker, it goes to Ramon Bowman. I don't know. I picked it because I wasn't gonna be able to say his name. I'm gonna call him Ramon Chicky Bowman, wide receiver from Northwestern. If you saw a score, it was 27-0. So, I mean, there wasn't much scoring, but he caught 8 passes for 86 yards, which isn't like, backbreaking or anything, but he caught 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, he was a big reason why Northwestern was able to pull that out. And especially because Peyton Ramsey was kind of having an off game. And then the last one I have is Malik Willis, quarterback for Liberty. He led the team in both passing and rushing. He was 14 of 19 for 306 yards and 3 touchdowns. And on the ground, he rushed the ball 8 times for 97 yards and 2 more touchdowns. So, yeah, that's and he plays at Liberty for Hugh Freeze, and that's a great segue by Justin, because we're going to get into some of the coaches in the hot seat. I don't know. I'll kind of just throw out some names, or you can throw out some names, and we'll just kind of say, did we really, are they gone, like possible replacements kind of things. I have a couple on the top of my head. So obviously Will Muschamp got canned. So some of the guys they said they would look at were Billy Napier from Louisiana, Jamie, I can't think of his last name, from Coastal, and Hugh Freeze from Liberty. I mean, they want someone to come in and run a pretty fast-paced offense, and that's kind of Coastal Carolina's thing, and Louisiana's this year. Mm-hmm. So I know that they had said that those guys were in contention. They'd probably be one of the first calls they made. And then if you got nothing on that, another guy I think isn't necessarily on the hot seat yet, but he's going to have some questions that need to be answered. James Franklin at Penn State. I understand Micah Parsons opted out, but you shouldn't be this bad just without Micah Parsons.
You really shouldn't.
And then, go ahead. You say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say one that we kind of talked about, but we've kind of said it's not really gonna happen is Jim Harbaugh. I mean, just this is a historically bad year for Michigan, and I mean, to be honest, he probably should be out after this year, but there's no really. I mean, there now since the college football season is coming to an end, there's more coaches are starting to show their faces and be contenders for that hot seat, but I just think he definitely needs to go. He's just been historically bad there. And does that mean he'll make another transition to another school, or will he go back to the NFL? Who knows? Maybe his career is done coaching. I mean, if he almost won a Super Bowl, then it was like, oh, great.
Yeah,
He kind of left with the 49ers. And then
he,
it's just kind of not really big. He was a big signing for Michigan, but hasn't really done a hell of a lot at Michigan.
yeah, he reminds me of the guy from Seinfeld, George. Like he's the guy who was like had everything was good for um the actor who plays George is what I mean. Like he was good, and then he did this show and everyone loved it, but he never was able to do anything again because everyone knows him as George from Seinfeld. Like I just think that that's like I don't know. I mean, I'm sure an NFL team would pick him up as maybe a coordinator or um, like a assistant coach kind of thing. But I don't. I mean, if you're Jim Harbaugh, is that where you want to do? Like you were the head coach, and then you were a head coach in Michigan. But I would still be pretty much surprised by if he got fired. I don't think he'll get fired. The only way he leaves, I think, is if he steps down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and then but for both the Michigan and the job and the Penn State job, I mean that's if you want to talk about. I know I've said it all year long, and I've echoed it all year long. But Luke Fickell will be the top pick for either one of those schools, especially Penn State. I think he'd have a tough time going to Michigan and coach because I mean he coached at Ohio State for so long. But if Penn State opened up, he would be, I would say, the first name they call. And then the last guy who, by the way, I used that website too. That's how I figured out Kevin Sumlin was at Arizona. But yeah, the last one I had is I mean Clay Helton. I mean
Mm-hmm.
USC has won 2 games this year, but I mean they've been late dramatic comeback wins, and it's just but if he continues to win or finishes with like a 6-1 or 5-2, I think they'll keep him on. I think the only name that could really get him out of there would be if Urban Meyer wanted to unretire and go coach, because he always said that there were 3 schools that he always wanted to coach at after he left Florida. He said Ohio State and Notre Dame and USC. So we'll see about that. I have a hard time believing Urban Meyer, as he gets older, wants to go back to coaching, but it's
You
always a
never know.
possibility. It's always a possibility, and I believe if he went to USC, he'd bring Luke Fickell with him. I think he'd establish like the greatest coaching tree ever. But that's pretty much it for Coach Evan Hot Seat. Like I said, we'll try and update when we can. But right now, I just have one quick news thing that I forgot to mention on Friday. Quinn Ewers, the top overall prospect, the quarterback, the top overall prospect in the 2022 class, decommitted from Texas last week or 2 weeks ago, and his likely landing spot is now Ohio State. That's pretty sad if you're Texas, that you're missing out on the best quarterback and the best prospect in your own state to go all the way to Ohio. That just shows you how Texas is right now. But with that being said, we're not going to preview next week. We'll do that all on Friday. So we're going to do trivia. Let's just do one question each today. Pick your best one,
Okay.
and then we'll do one question each.
All right. Do you want to go first or?
I'll go first. Okay. What current FBS school has the most losses of all time?
Current FBS school?
Has the most. Yep.
Oh, All right. This is kind of a tough one because I feel like it's between two. Um, you're gonna put me on the spot.
You're not
Ooh,
you're not gonna get it.
I probably won't. Is it? Oh God. I don't know.
All right, I'll type it up.
All right. Well, I did have a question, but I'm gonna save it for when we have a longer segment. What was Georgia's first mascot?
Like the dog's name.
Nope. As in like their first original mascot.
So
It
like
came out in
not the Bulldogs. You're
no,
saying.
not the Bulldogs.
Okay.
It came out in 1892.
Was it something super racist?
No.
It's Georgia in 1892. You never know. Um, is it the Terriers?
No.
Let's type it in. Goat. They were the Georgia Goats.
Yep, it was technically what they called they didn't have they were just called Georgia, but their official like good luck charm was a goat.
All right. Well, we both go 0-1. We're not even gonna count that one. So
I
that's all
mean,
right.
no, we can do like an early segment. It's an early segment, so
Yeah. But yeah, with that being said, that'll be oh, I do have to plug some MAC. There's some action going on tonight. Ohio Miami of Ohio is a big rivalry in the MAC. They have already been canceled. So in my favorite game, I wish I was going to it. The battle for the wagon wheel. Akron will travel to Kent State in what really is one of college basketball's best rivalries and most underrated rivalries, but the football game is pretty good too. It's been pretty evenly matched over years. Kent's favored by 25. This being like a
you mean
rivalry game.
Akron's favored by 25?
No, Kent's favored by 25.
Oh, okay.
Akron has had two horrible losses to start the year, but so I like Arkansas or no, she's everywhere, aren't I? I like Akron plus 25 just because it's it's a rivalry game. Emotions would be there, and then Buffalo at Bowling Green. Buffalo's favored by 31.5. Take that before it goes up because Bowling Green is putrid, and Buffalo will probably win the MAC this year. And with that being said, make sure you follow Jake on Twitter. Or hold on, I don't know how to get rid of this thing. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, your Twitter
is Piccuito Piccuito Jacob. That is my Twitter.
Yeah, and then
It's
mine is
the title. Don't listen to the title.
is it and then mine is at Brownlow J CLE. And then the obviously the podcast Twitter is
the number 4 TH and long pod is the Twitter for the podcast.
And so we'll keep you guys updated on any more cancellations or postponements, and we will also let you know our schedule. We'll talk about our schedule afterwards here, and we'll come up with an idea for it. And other than that, today finally should be the release of my new segment called 360 Degrees with JB. I interviewed Cleveland Indians beat writer for The Athletic, Zach Meisel, for about 20 minutes. And that should be going up. So if you want to know anything about the Indians this offseason, Ohio State football, Cleveland baseball, or anything like that, what Zach puts on his hot dogs, just go ahead and read that. We should be getting that out today. But yeah, other than that, came in just under an hour. So we are perfect. So everyone stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good rest of the day. Anything else, Jake?
No, peace out, everyone.